I think it is time to begin with an experiment. Regardless of how the Pokemon Capital Cities video went, I had planned long before its release to expand different video ideas and franchises. Now I've already talked about Pokemon and Fire Emblem, so it is now time to move on to the final piece of my Nintendo Trinity in Xenoblade Chronicles. This video will give a brief series overview for the Xenoblade Chronicles games and give potential newcomers to the franchise an easy introductory course with a roadmap on experiencing what I would consider to be a life-changing game series and a personal canon event. But quickly, let's go over my own Xenoblade credentials and my personal story with the franchise. I first began in 2014 watching Chuka Conroy's Xenoblade LP, followed by his 2020 Xenoblade 2 LP. During that time, I also played Xenoblade Definitive for Switch at release, played Xenoblade 3 at launch, and then went back and bought a physical copy of Xenoblade 2 to play for myself, and then just last year I got to play Xenoblade X Definitive Edition. This was an easy path for me since I already had some prior knowledge of the series and knew where to go, but where would that leave you? I'll give a quick primer on each game, and at the end of the video, show 2 ways to experience the entire Xenoblade Chronicles package, one being a straightforward easy path, and the other being a bit more complicated, but what I think is a greater emotional payoff if you want it. This video will discuss each game in release order and be spoiler free. I ask for any series veterans that may be watching to also be courteous and not overshare anything about the game spoken today. The first game takes place in the world of the Bionis and Mechonis. In a vast, endless ocean, 2 continent-sized titans waged war with one another. The long-dormant titans eventually gave life to new inhabitants called Homs and Mechon that continue the battle in the modern day. The only viable defense the Homs hold against the invading Mechon was an ancient sword called the Monado, wielded by the game's main protagonist Shulk, who must now take the legendary weapon and the future visions it grants him when the Mechon reappear after a year of silence. What was initially a quest for vengeance, Shulk soon wonders why the beings of Bionis and Mechonis must fight, and if coexistence is possible between the two. This is a wonderful experience that seamlessly merges aspects of fantasy, sci-fi, and arguably steampunk, that dives into many heavy philosophical questions like fate and determinism. The numbered Xenoblade games share a common theme with time and how it affects people, with the first game about forging your own future and the idea of free will. The game was initially released for the Wii, had a new 3DS port with a brand new gallery mode, and even a Wii U eShop release. 5 years later, in 2020, Xenoblade Chronicles had a definitive edition that released on the Switch that included a brand new future connected story that came bundled with the game's updated art style and various under-the-hood updates. I would personally recommend the definitive edition on the Switch for new fans, as it's the easiest version to obtain with the new updated art style newcomers may appreciate, alongside the brand new future connected story that ties into the rest of the series. But should you come across the original version for the Wii, new 3DS, or the Wii U, I would also say that's a fine and valid way to start as well. In the year 2054, Earth is caught in a war between 2 advanced alien races and is destroyed. In a desperate bid for survival, humanity embarks to the stars in spacefaring arcs in search of a new home. One of these ships, the White Whale, crashes on a previously uncharted planet called Mythra and establishes a new settlement, only to be followed by one of those previously mentioned alien factions that seemingly came to finish the job. Playing as an awakened customizable silent avatar, you are tasked by Colonel Elma of the Earth Colonization Project to recover life pods strewn across this unfamiliar world and find the lifehold that was separated during the crash, containing 20 million cryogenically frozen people before the hostile aliens can find it and wipe out the rest of humanity. This title first debuted on the Wii U, though its online features and downloadable content are no longer easily available after the Wii U's online service was shut down. Though fortunately, a definitive edition of the game was released on the Switch with updated graphics, much of the previous content restored, and a brand new epilogue that finishes the cliffhanger story left in the original game 10 years ago. It is especially because of this new epilogue story that I recommend you play the definitive edition that ties back into the numbered Xenoblade games, whereas the original version was more of a standalone side game that previously held dubious connections to the other Xenoblade titles. Returning to the main series, in a post-apocalyptic setting of all rest, humanity and blades, a race of living weapons that coexist with humans, live on the backs of continent-sized titans floating above the cloud sea surrounding the world tree. Disaster develops as the titans are slowly dying out, land and resources become scarcer, and at the center of it all is one young salvager named Rex, who hopes to find a way to the mythical land of Elysium atop the world tree, full of boundless land and resources for all to live prosperously. After taking a suspicious salvaging gig to uncover an ancient ship from below the cloud sea, Rex bonds with a powerful blade named Pyra, who says she can take Rex to Elysium and asks him to help her reach the fabled land. Another marvelous point in the Xenoblade series, this game's theme with time tackles how the past traumatizes and defines people in the present, and how they continue living in a world like Allrest. While this game can technically be played before Xenoblade Chronicles, it is recommended you play it after the first game. Xenoblade 2 is also rather infamous for its unhelpful and misleading tutorials, and should you embark on this journey, I greatly advise you use Shulk Conroy's Xenoblade 2 tutorial guide as supplementary aid. This game made its debut for the Nintendo Switch system and has an extended prequel story in the Torna, the Golden Country paid DLC that takes place during the Aegis War 500 years before the events of Xenoblade 2. The Torna paid DLC does greatly enhance the main story, but if money's tight for you, or you wish to finish the main game first, it is okay to wait and return to it later. It is also recommended that you play Xenoblade 2's main story first, as the Torna DLC improves on a lot of the gameplay and may spoil some aspects of the main story. At the end of the journey is the finale for the main numbered Xenoblade trilogy, Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I highly recommend you play Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 first, as this game is actually a sequel to both. The setting of Xenoblade 3 merges the worlds of Xenoblade and Xenoblade 2 into a new world called Ionios, a word meaning without beginning or an end, otherwise eternal. Ironic, as its inhabitants are obsessed with it today and now, locked in an endless war between two nations called Kevis and Agnes, as soldiers from both kingdoms kill each other and sap the life force from fallen enemies just to live one more day. This never-ending torment is brought to a sudden twist when a strange set of circumstances bring together three soldiers from each side to unite against a previously unknown third party that has been feeding off of their forever war by harvesting the life force each side has collected. As the finale for the numbered Xenoblade trilogy, this game is best played after the first two numbered Xenoblade games. Xenoblade 3's themes focus on the present time, asking if people would want to continue living in the perpetual endless now instead of traversing into a frightening unknown. There also exists another paid DLC story called Future Redeemed that takes place in an unknown time before Xenoblade 3's main story, with callbacks to the rest of the numbered trilogy and giving small clues to the series' future. Much like with Xenoblade 2's Torna DLC, I would greatly suggest that you complete the main story before making your decision on whether to purchase the Future Redeemed story or not. Now that I presented all the games of the Xenoblade franchise, what's the best play order for you to experience? The best place to start is with the first Xenoblade Chronicles, which can be a great standalone game on its own, or an excellent gateway into the rest of the series. From there, follow the games in numerical order, and if you have a chance, slot Xenoblade Chronicles X virtually anywhere after the first game. Though if you hear me out and have the patience and funds to embark on what I dub the Indigo Order, begin with the first Xenoblade Chronicles, Original or Definitive Edition, and complete the main story. then change the game to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition and complete the entire main story. Move on to Xenoblade Chronicles 2's main story, and then play the Torna the Golden Country DLC. Return to Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and play the Future Connected epilogue that came bundled free with the definitive version of the game. If you played the first game's original version, you do have the option to jump immediately into Future Connected if you don't want to play the entire game again. Now complete the entire numbered trilogy with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and then the Future Redeemed DLC. To end, you can now complete the entire Xenoblade series by going back to Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive and finish the fight with the Chapter 13 epilogue that the Definitive Edition introduced. This is why I recommend you play Xenoblade Chronicles X's Definitive Edition instead of the original, since the other games allowed you to jump into the bonus stories if you've already played the main game. But Xenoblade X requires you to complete the main story, and so to avoid having to play the entire game again, complete the main story in Definitive Edition first, and then return to the Chapter 13 epilogue later. Xenoblade is a life-changing game franchise that I'd like a lot of people to take part in and enjoy for themselves, that tackles the themes of time, the weight of life, and is sure to be a fun game and an extraordinary exploration experience. Start with the first Xenoblade Chronicles and see if you want to continue. From there, the easiest way to progress is to go by the numbers or the release order, with Xenoblade X fitting virtually anywhere after the first game. Though if you want to go above and beyond, consider the Indigo order that I laid out earlier if you want what I consider to be the best experience. I still have a couple more Xenoblade video ideas for the future, but in the meantime, you can check out the other two cores of my Nintendo Trinity with the Pokemon and Fire Emblem playlists here. And with that, have a good rest of your day.